In September 2022, a user with the handle Old Man River made a Reddit post titled, "I found a strange medical textbook washed up on a beach." He explains he was walking his dog when he found a plastic bag in the sand near the shoreline, as if it was brought in by the tide. Inside was an old book labeled Manual of the Medical Department. He says while he was flipping through it, a photo of an X-ray fell out from between the pages. That X-ray shows a human skull with some kind of very large parasite inside of it. Old Man River claims the book is a kind of medical encyclopedia, but it's full of references to diseases and animals that don't exist. He includes an excerpt. Parascaphism is an often fatal illness caused by the adolescent marionette octopus, a small parasitic octopus found off the coast of Massachusetts. Given its small size of 1 to 2 millimeters, it can easily be mistaken for a large grain of sand and accidentally ingested. Parascaphism is not a real word, but scaphism is. Scaphism was an ancient Persian torture method. Victims were held in place and covered in honey before being left outside to be slowly eaten by insects and vermin. The book goes on to explain that once inside the host's head, the octopus quickly burrows into the brain and begins manipulating the nervous system. The infected person experiences the urge to self-isolate and eat excessively, and their body starts to break down. Once the infection has progressed far enough, they develop an irresistible compulsion to swim into the nearest body of water and drown themselves. Old Man River is the Reddit account of an indie game developer named Tim Oxton. This post about a medical encyclopedia documenting a parasite that doesn't exist is one of the earliest installments of a fascinating and kind of heartbreaking cosmic horror story he created, Silkbulb. That story continues with a game Oxton released in 2023, which is linked at the bottom of the post. The Steam description for Future Racer 2000 builds it as a first-person horror game about a video game, an apartment, and the encroaching tide. The central character of the game is a woman named Sam, who lives alone in a small apartment that's under government quarantine after the outbreak of a mysterious disease. Confined to her room, Sam spends her days watching the same few TV shows, replaying games on her console, and chatting with friends on the phone. She seems superficially content, but there's something pulling at her beneath the surface. The game begins with Sam having what's implied to be a recurring nightmare. She stands on a long, narrow river of flowing sand, sandwiched between two walls painted with cartoonish ocean wave backdrops. It looks like something out of a low-budget theme park or a half-finished set for an old movie. Sam follows the sand into a bank of dense gray fog and somehow emerges from it in the ocean, deep under the water. She sees someone standing on a dock in the distance. The camera glitches so much when the player looks at them that you can barely tell they're a person at all, but Sam recognizes it as her estranged girlfriend Pia, who disappeared from her life one day about a year ago without saying goodbye. Sam asks her ex-girlfriend why she left, telling her bitterly that, "I'm all alone now." Sam notices there are empty holes where Pia's eyes should be. Sam says that she hopes Pia is miserable. Pia, or this eyeless thing that looks like Pia, asks how Sam can wish that on someone she loves. Sam says she wants Pia to be miserable because she's miserable without her. She tells Pia that she hates her. Pia's face slides off and hundreds of iridescent fish spill out of the hole in her head into Sam's hands. Sam wakes up. Her phone is ringing. She notices it's raining again. You can hear rain outside her apartment for the entire duration of the game. Most of Future Racer 2000 takes place in just this one cramped room. It's basically become her world since the quarantine. We don't get much view into her background, but we can learn a little from what she chooses to keep around her. Posters for vintage sci-fi movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and 20 Million Miles to Earth are hung on the walls next to concert flyers and pictures. By the bed is a bizarre painting of a swimming woman with a blank, expressionless face, being ensnared by a huge octopus with dead black eyes and pulled down into the ocean. A small thermos and a toy keyboard from Sam's childhood can be found lying around, along with an old flannel shirt that belonged to Pia. Sam's narration tells us she won't throw it out because she'd miss her smell. Sam answers the phone. When she picks up, a monotone, muddled voice on the other end asks,
"Are you lonely?"
It pauses unnaturally after every syllable. Sam asks who she's speaking to. The voice just repeats the question. Sam asks if this is a joke. Sam finally snaps. Yes, of course I'm fucking lonely. What's your problem? There's a shriek on the other end and the line goes dead. Sam brushes off the crank caller as a weirdo. She gets a message on her answering machine. I still love you. There's no number to call back. Her response text reads, "A lump in your throat." This message isn't voiced, but she seems to recognize it as being from Pia. This is the first time Sam would have heard from her in a long time. Sam doesn't really seem ready to think about that right now. She goes to watch TV. Sparks fly out when she tries to turn it on. She heads for the electrical breaker in the building's basement to fix the power. As she's leaving, the player can examine an old picture of Sam and Pia together hanging by the door, as well as a postcard from Pia dated just before her disappearance. When the power is back on, Sam watches a surreal cartoon called Slugs and Money. Two men holding fistfuls of cash make bets on a race between slugs. In the middle of the action, one man's jaw abruptly unhinges and a large, wriggling parasite flies out of it and burrows into the other man's head. Then the second man's jaw cracks open and a stream of dozens more parasites spill out of it. The scene fades out as the text, "Weep in the face of our one true God," appears on screen. The episode ends. Sam's only comment on any of that is, "I love that show." She goes to bed and has a dream where she looks down at herself from outside her own body. Something is happening to her. She again wakes up to a jarring noise. This time it's a visitor buzzing into her apartment. She walks to the intercom and talks to a grouchy delivery driver who says he's got a package for her. She says she's not expecting a package.
Take it, don't take it, I don't give a shit, man. It's down here either way.
The player has the option to screw with the delivery driver a little during this conversation.
I will keep this package as hot as I can if you fuck with me. Just try me. Come down here, motherfucker, I dare you. I better have priest in this box, I'm gonna put you in the fucking grave.
Ultimately, Sam decides to go down to the lobby to check it out, even though she didn't ask for it. The state of that room raises more questions than it answers about what's happening in the world right now. There's an official-looking warning sign on the door stating that this building is under federal quarantine until further notice due to an active cephalospora infection. Like the marionette octopus, cephalospora isn't the name of a real plant or animal. The word itself is a combination of the Greek roots cephalos meaning head and spora meaning seeds or planting. So whatever the outbreak that's forced everyone into quarantine is, it seems to have something to do with foreign organisms infecting the head. Hanging next to that sign is a less official-looking poster warning the reader about a different public health issue. Parascaphism, the fictitious disease from Old Man River's fake encyclopedia. It lists a number of symptoms to watch for, like sinus pain or ear pain, constant hunger, fever, sense of impending doom. Interestingly, it lists at least one new symptom the medical book didn't. Visual and/or auditory hallucinations. It's not clear yet if parascaphism and the cephalospora infection are related, or if the world in Future Racer is just experiencing outbreaks of two horrifying invasive diseases at the same time. Either way, Sam finds the package lying beside a pile of similar packages on the lobby floor. She briefly considers just throwing it away, but she doesn't. On the way back, she passes by the office of the superintendent, Leonard. Sam thinks that he's nice, but seems lonely. There's a magic eye poster of a dinosaur hung up beside his door. She takes the package back upstairs and opens it on her bed. It's filled with sand. Not clean sand, but sand littered with stray leaves and shells, like someone packed it right on the beach. Nestled inside is a small old-school video game cartridge labeled Future Racer 2000, along with a note. You answered the call and the tide responds in kind, friend. Join us and race to the shore. Maybe you'll even beat the high score. Before she can do anything else, Sam gets a call from her neighbor Henry. He tells her he just got a copy of this same game in the mail from his brother George. Like Pia, George also disappeared without explanation sometime around the start of the outbreak. Sam also gets a voicemail message from Pete, another neighbor who invites her to come over and play this crazy racing game his estranged cousin just sent him out of the blue. The same thing is happening to all three of them at the same time, but the way Pete's message ends suggests he's the only one who realizes that something is wrong. Anyway, I'm probably running out of time. Sam doesn't call Pete back. Instead, she inserts the game cartridge into her console. At first, it doesn't work. She flips it over and finds text on the back instructing her to blow on it to remove sand particulate prior to use. She does, and a cloud of fine sand flies out into her nose, making her sneeze. Future Racer 2000 turns out to be a rhythm-based racing game. The title screen has two options: play and high score. High scores are mentioned a lot as the game goes on, but we never actually get to see that screen. In the game, the player has to press the arrow keys in the right sequence to accelerate a pale blue race car that stands out against the neon red cityscape rushing by in the background. It looks like the word Zalupa is written on the driver's side door. The only translation I could find of that is a Russian or Ukrainian word meaning head, so I'm not sure what the significance is there. The player only gets to watch Sam play one round that lasts a few minutes, which she wins. But when it's over, it's already dark outside, even though she started soon after waking up in the morning. She has 4 new messages on her phone. The first 3 are from her neighbor Henry, who says he's bored and asks her to call him back. He can't seem to stop eating apples, even though he says he hates fruit.
I'm eating an apple. I hate fruit. You know I hate fruit. I'm eating another apple. How so bored I am. You know how many frickin' apples I've eaten today? I gotta stop eating all these apples. I hate apples.
The last message is a vaguely threatening reminder from another neighbor, Bob, not to have loud conversations after the 10 p.m. noise curfew. We haven't seen her have a conversation at night before this, though. When Sam interacts with her bed to sleep, she wonders if she's already dreaming. She has a nightmare where she's physically inside the world of Future Racer 2000. The pixelated cityscape looms up on either side of her like the painted ocean walls in her earlier nightmare, giving her only one direction to go in. The road is flooded, and as she wades through the dark water, she passes a pair of pale, emaciated people crawling on their hands and knees next to her. They can be spoken to. One says, "I'm going to beat the high score, I can feel it." The other says, "It's almost time. I'm sorry, but you understand." These are other people who are playing this game, like her. She runs forward into the dark and arrives in front of a pixelated door. When Sam interacts with it, she just says, "I'm not ready." She has another out-of-body experience. Her face is bathed in an eerie reddish light. Half of it looks normal. The other half is a strange, dead-looking layer of flabby skin laid over it. It's like she's wearing half of a rubber mask, or growing a new face. She wakes up. Her buzzer is ringing again. The voice on the other end is the same one who called just before she was mailed the game.
Strange. It says you.
She asks who she's speaking to.
Strange. It says you.
She asks what Pia told them.
Strange. It says you.
She hangs up and leaves her apartment to go to the front door and see who's pressing the buzzer. In the hallway, she walks past Pete. He's the first other person we actually get to see in this game. He's standing next to the window wearing a brown sweater. The back of his head is oddly flat and discolored. He has a blank expression on his face, and he never looks at Sam or acknowledges her. He mumbles the same words over and over again. Outside the window, it's still raining. Sam continues past him to the lobby. The first time she was here, 2 of the mailboxes belonging to her fellow tenants were crossed out with black paint. Now 10 of them have been. Whatever this infection does to people, it's doing it quickly. Sam walks to the window to look for her visitor. There's a silhouette barely visible through the foggy glass. She asks if Pia is okay. She asks, "What are you?"
Strange. It says you.
Suddenly it's dark in the lobby. Sam's been standing there all day without realizing it. As she makes her way back to her apartment, she brushes past Pete. He's been at the same place in the hall by the window all day too. He's still mumbling about the rain. She plays another round of Future Racer. Before the game loads, the silhouette of a woman with blurry patches of static where her eyes and mouth should be appears on the monitor. After a few seconds, the interface warps and we can see the shadow of what looks like a crab or a beetle crawling over the corner of the screen. Suddenly the game is over and the phone is ringing again. Another screech and then a dead line. There are new messages on her machine. Henry says that something isn't right. He claims he ran into his dead mother in the hallway just now.
I had her face. I hadn't gotten the voice right yet, though. So I knew it wasn't her. Right? She's been dead for...
He warns Sam that if she ever gets another call from him...
It's not me.
He thanks her for being a good friend. Right on cue, her buzzer rings.
Hey, Sam.
It's Henry, begging her to let him in.
I'm outside.
Sam rushes down to the lobby and looks out the window. A blurry face peers back at her through the fog. Sam knows she isn't supposed to let Henry in, but she's conflicted. We get the opportunity to see Sam's mental to-do list a few times in the game. Usually it contains neutral reminders like flip the breaker or open the box. Let Henry in. Don't be a bitch. You're alone because you're selfish. The only option the player is given to respond to Henry is, no, I deserve to be alone. She doesn't let him in. He slides a photograph under the door. It shows Sam and Pia kissing. A lock of hair falling down the middle of Sam's head makes it look as though her face has been split in two. On the back is the message, Sam, I've missed you. We all miss you. Come back, please. It's signed by Pia, but Sam doesn't recognize the handwriting. She wonders, am I the problem? Back in her apartment, Sam picks up the phone to call Pia. It doesn't ring, but somehow Pia answers anyway. Sam says, I miss you. Pia says, I miss you too, where did you go? Sam says Pia is the one who left her. Pia replies that Sam was gone long before that. Suddenly, Pia bizarrely pivots to talking about Future Racer 2000. She says she really wants to beat the game and see the ending. She says she'll come over if Sam can beat it. Sam promises she will. Sam hallucinates that she's inside the game world again, standing in the dark water between the low-res neon buildings. There are more of those emaciated people racing each other in the water now. One says, I'm so fucking lonely it burns like hot coals in my chest. I do nothing but watch it turn me to ash. Another says, if I stopped being so fucking sad all the time, would I even be me? I'll miss it. I miss this version of me. Like Sam, something's convinced these people that finishing the game will stop the pain. Sam recognizes one of the crawling things as Pete. He can't remember who he is. Unlike in most conversations in the game, the player gets the chance to choose from multiple dialogue options when speaking to him. If you choose to be encouraging, Sam reminds Pete that his name is Pete, and he's a great filmmaker. She tries to reassure him that they'll escape this together. But you can also choose to tell him his films are bad, or that this is his own fault, or that you're leaving without him. If you pick any of those options, he clams up and won't talk to you anymore. It feels like she knows he isn't going to get better, and throughout their conversation, she has to keep fighting the urge to be needlessly cruel, so he goes away and she doesn't have to care anymore. Maybe that's part of the reason Sam told Pia that she hated her in her dream. Whatever the player chooses to tell Pete, Sam ultimately has no choice but to leave him and the rest behind. She runs forward until she's in front of the same door. She again says, I'm not ready, but this time she adds, not yet. There's a crunching sound and she turns around to see an enormous human head floating behind her, bending and warping like it's made of clay. When she snaps back to reality, the power is out. Someone is knocking violently on the door. She looks in the peephole and sees Pete staring back. His skin looks like shiny plastic. One of his eyes has a hazy white cloud over it. He smashes his face against the door over and over again until it bursts into viscera. But Sam isn't that concerned because she really just wants to beat Future Racer 2000. After she hears him walk away, she opens the door and heads for the basement to flip the breaker again. As she goes down the hallway, we see a black crab or spider-like creature with too many legs scuttling around the corner. In the basement, the breaker has been sealed up with a fungus-like black growth. Someone locks the basement door behind her when she tries to leave, forcing her to exit through a maintenance tunnel. The tunnel is narrow and dark. Early on, she passes the body of a maintenance man lying face down in a pool of water, a giant tendril of black fungus growing from a cavity in his back. Some notes found in his corpse describe him collapsing in the tunnel, experiencing nosebleeds and extreme thirst. Before he died, he writes, he thought he could hear his wife calling to him from deep inside the building's water tank. He was convinced he had to get her out before she drowned. Sam turns a corner and nearly collides with someone. An unnaturally tall, thin figure with pale gray skin everywhere except its face is standing there. It's wearing Pete's brown sweater. It faces away from her, not moving or reacting. You can see it breathing slowly. Around the corner in a waterlogged hallway, she finds a body in a polka-dot sundress lying on the ground. A long, inhuman appendage made of misshapen skin is growing from a hole in its head. At the end of this new limb is what looks like an eyeless human face. Sam recognizes the body as Susie from apartment 1443. Examining its character model, we can see that Susie's eyes are still present. They're hanging underneath this fleshy growth, slightly below the hole where her real face should be. Sam eventually finds the spare breaker and flips it on. As soon as the lights come back, the thing wearing Pete's sweater charges down the hallway, forcing her to escape into a side door. She finds herself in the office of the superintendent, Leonard, which also turns out to be where he lives. A giant glob of black liquid is stuck to the wall, with random pieces of furniture and office supplies sticking out of it. Leonard's journal explains that this pool of liquid appeared here without warning, and he's been sticking things into it to see where they go. Eventually, he decides to drink some of it. He writes that it tastes fine. The next day, he writes that it tastes fine. The day after that, and after that, he writes that it tastes fine. The journal ends there. On Leonard's wall are a number of Polaroids next to a marker drawing that looks very similar to the creature Sam hallucinated crawling over her TV screen, and the one she saw in the hallway. One of the Polaroids shows dozens of boxes identical to the box Future Racer 2000 came in, stacked in the lobby. Someone or something intentionally infected this entire building. Another Polaroid is captioned, "Kids messing in restricted area again." It shows a white, eyeless face that doesn't really look like it belongs to a kid peering back at the camera from the dark. When Sam enters the bathroom, she finds Leonard's body lying under a blanket in his bathtub. A long, grotesque tentacle made of fungus extends from inside his mouth to a pustule on the wall. Chalky white fluid drips out of his pores if the player chooses to touch his cheek. The sink is stained with dried blood. A note is pinned on the mirror above it. Leonard writes that he hears his dead children knocking on the door outside. Oddly, the on-screen text that appears when the player examines this note is completely different from the text written on the actual note texture used in-game. The on-screen text is more verbose and clean, while the message in the texture is short and riddled with typos and profanity. Whatever Leonard's dying words actually were, Sam is reading something else. It's not clear how much of what she's seen and heard so far has been altered like this, or who or what is altering it. Sam finds the key to unlock Leonard's room and makes her way back to her apartment to beat the game. But when she starts up the console, her car won't move. She turns around and sees she's in a wet cavern bathed in blue light. She fumbles through the dark and finds herself in her apartment hallway. A giant black entity with legs like a spider rears up in front of her. She feels it staring at her. She can stare back. As they connect, the text on screen describes it, flooding her mind with fleeting moments. Sand, gulls, laughter, the smell of salt and sun. Sam's response is, "I miss being okay." Sam turns from the creature and opens the door to her apartment to find another hallway. She walks forward past a silent Pete, most of his face missing, and a host of other mutilated bodies growing their own new faces. The door at the end of the hall opens into the ocean again. She swims forward until she sees herself from outside her body a final time. Her legs are gone. Her belly is distended and her nose and mouth are dripping white fluid. Her head convulses violently. Behind her, something massive is lurking in the water. The last visual in the game is a close-up of Sam's new, drooping, rubbery face. Something black and shiny is stuck to the top of her head. but it's too close to the edge of the camera to get a good look at. Behind her, the image of waves rolling into a sunny beach fades into view as we hear the sound of gulls cawing. It's an only time in the game. Sam smiles. Then her mouth suddenly jerks open. The game ends. Before looking at the next game in the Silkbulb continuity, it's worth checking out some of the videos on Tim Oxton's YouTube channel, which fill in more parts of the narrative. In Messenger, a title card shows the date is March 3rd, 1974. Someone named Dr. Weber casually narrates the autopsy of a deformed humanoid with a gaping mouth and no eyes. He refers to it as the Glen Devon organism. Glen Devon is the name of Sam's apartment complex. In Participant 47A, we're shown clips of a man in a white t-shirt. His eyes and mouth are stretched unnaturally wide, like he's caught in an exaggerated scream. A slide appears on screen labeled Stage 3. In the next clip, the man's skin has overgrown his eyes. Finally, in silkbulbtest.jpg, black and white images of wide-eyed people with blank expressions flash on the screen as an eerie melody plays. Between the images, the same three words are shown over and over in increasingly larger font. Today was special. The second Silkbulb game is called Flathead. It was released almost exactly a year after Future Racer. Someone could be forgiven for not realizing these two games are related at first. They have very different gameplay, and their stories cover mostly different characters and events. But as you play on, it gradually becomes clear they're both part of the same universe. Future Racer shows us the disaster long after it's already too late. Flathead gives a look into how it started, and, more importantly, what's steering it. The player character never gets a name beyond Flathead. The game opens with this person, if they are even a person, strapped into a chair in a small room. To their left, bright light streams in through a window, but no outside world is visible. The faint sound of rain can be heard. To the right, a black and white picture of a woman on a shelf looks down at them with a blank expression. In front of them is a table with an old-school TV on it, and above that is a glossy pool of black liquid floating on the wall. It looks just like the pool of liquid in Leonard's room. If you look very closely, you can see the reflection of the deformed Susie from Future Racer in it. The player can flip a lever on the wall next to them to be transported to another chair in a dark room. The game is very simple. It's over-under. The monitor displays a random number. The computer then generates a hidden number which the player isn't shown. They have to guess whether the number shown is over or under the hidden number. They get points for every correct guess, and if they get enough points, they go to the next level. The pressure comes from a monster in the hallway behind the chair that slowly advances toward the player. It can temporarily be frozen in place by turning on a light next to the monitor, but the bulb blows out after a few seconds and can't be used again. If it reaches the player, something wrenches their head back and a gloved hand fishes an LED screen with a final number on it directly out of their skull. The player is prompted to guess over or under. If they're correct, they get to keep playing. If they're not, well, this happens. The story of Flathead is primarily told through a series of audio tapes that are placed on the wall of the player's holding cell as they advance through successive rounds and obtain higher scores. The first group of tapes are entries from the audio diary of an unnamed physicist.
And I am keeping a record of my life.
He works at a laboratory that's constructing a new particle accelerator to better understand photons, the elementary particles that make up light and other forms of electromagnetic radiation, like radio waves and Wi-Fi signals. There's an accident. A safeguard fails and a plasma beam from the accelerator passes through his skull. The doctor he's sent to estimates that his brain sustained about 50 times the hourly radiation output of Chernobyl's reactor core. Somehow, after this happens, he's still conscious and even able to speak. The doctor's notes record that he keeps mumbling the phrase, "Today was special." Later, when describing this incident to researchers, he claims he felt no pain at the moment of impact, but saw a strange pink and blue light and heard a weird melody. Before the light around him bent and curved into him, and the room fell into me. No one expects the physicist to survive long, but he does. He even seems to keep most of his mental faculties. However, it quickly becomes clear that something about the incident changed him.
I feel like time is flowing around me, I think. It's ebbing and it's flowing.
He also has frequent visions or hallucinations of being in a dark hallway he's never actually been to. He claims he sees people there, but they're not quite people.
It's like they have all the right parts, but they don't know what to do with them. They just look.
Every time he leaves the hallway and comes back, there are more of them. He says he's not sure whether they're staring at him or the other way around, echoing Sam's thought about the eyeless black creature at the end of Future Racer. In the physicist's final entry, he describes feeling something inescapable pulling him down.
It's warm and it's light. And I'm going home. I see that now. I see that today is special. Remember that.
The second group of tapes, which seem to be dated sometime after the physicist's accident, are research logs. The group writing them is studying some kind of anomalous area they call the structure. It's never made explicit what the structure is or where it came from, but it's implied to be in some way related to the particle accelerator accident. The researchers are running a series of tests on the structure that they call observational studies. The over-under trials the player participates in may or may not be a part of these studies. In the course of the tests, the structure emits unique sounds that often register as recognizable images when viewed with a spectrogram. In one case, it plays a trio of unique musical arrangements the researchers call the cephalonic melodies. The spectrogram for each one contains a single English word in capital letters. Together they spell out, "Today was special." It also seems to be home to or otherwise produce living things. One log shows a picture of a disturbing humanoid creature with a distended mouth gaping at the viewer in a spectrogram. The researchers call these watchers, though they have no visible eyes. They look very similar to the Glendevan organism. As the experiments progress, strange events begin to plague the research staff. The anomalous creatures are captured by audio recorders more frequently. One researcher believes that they're attempting to communicate something. People who are part of the studies start vanishing. Occasionally, the structure emits sounds whose spectrograms contain images of their faces. The researchers begin to believe it's consuming them somehow and then regurgitating them as waveforms. More disturbingly, the structure starts broadcasting sounds whose spectrograms depict scenes from the researchers' own memories. These reconstructed memories are usually broadly accurate to the originals. The expressions of the people who appear in them are always blank. Data cards capturing these recordings appear in the field with the English word lonely written on them. The researchers aren't sure who's doing the writing. The third and final group of tapes are all addressed directly to the player, the Flathead. They contain cryptic but weirdly encouraging messages from a distorted voice that's reminiscent of the one on the other end of Sam's mystery phone calls. The very first tape is one of these. It's titled, "Today is Special."
Because today, my friend, is special. Today you will be tested again and again.
The second tape has no narration, just audio of waves with the subtitle, "Listen for the waves, Flathead. From the depths, their songs will guide you to new shores." The final tape is called Friend.
Tomorrow beckons, friend. Shed your grief and let the tides of time wash you away. Today was special.
After listening to that tape, the door to the player's cell opens. If they try to exit, they're warped out of the room into a dark hallway. This is the only time in the game the player isn't strapped into a chair. The only direction to walk is forward, towards a dim shape in the distance. Every once in a while, a bright white light turns on and freezes you in place. When you get close enough, the shape becomes visible. It's a Flathead, maybe a version of yourself, strapped into a chair playing the over-under game. The player is the monster now. The If you reach the chair, the game ends. Silkbulb is a story that intentionally leaves a lot of questions unanswered. These are only some of my thoughts about what may have happened and why. Sometime in the 1960s or 1970s, a lab accident sent a beam of radioactive plasma through a physicist's brain. On social media, the developer cited as inspiration the real-life Anatoly Bugorsky, a Russian PhD student who suffered a similar accident when a proton beam entered his head at a Soviet research facility in 1978. I think in some ways the unnamed physicist's situation is more like the case of Phineas Gage, a 19th century engineer whose brain was impaled by a railroad spike during a construction accident. Whereas Bugorsky ultimately recovered well and even went on to finish his PhD and lead a mostly ordinary life, Gage's accident left him profoundly and permanently altered. He lost his ability to regulate his emotions and commit to long-term plans, and became prone to flying into childlike fits of rage seemingly for no reason at all. A close friend remarked that he was no longer Phineas. He was someone else. Interestingly, the doctor who treated Gage immediately after his accident noted he had a leg tremor, a symptom the physicist also presents. The physicist doesn't exactly become someone else after his accident, but he does seem to be put somewhere else. He says he feels time ebbing and flowing around him rather than passing linearly. He experiences recurring hallucinations of a hallway filled with uncanny figures. I think that at the moment the plasma intersected human brain tissue, some kind of signal was sent to somewhere in space and time, and something outside our understanding of the world was attracted to it. I think this force or entity is the origin of the structure and the other anomalies observed by the researchers whose logs we read later on. The black tapes from Flathead, which I believe are in some sense direct messages from this entity, all make heavy use of ocean imagery. Crashing waves, songs from the depths, distant shores, a tide. The physicist describes feeling something pulling him down, echoing the painting of an octopus dragging a swimmer beneath the water in Sam's bedroom. Sam herself begins and ends the game being literally lured down a path that leads her deep under the ocean. An encroaching tide is also mentioned in the stream description of Future Racer, and the note that comes with Sam's copy of the game states, "The tide is responding to her." The physicist's diary describes time like a tide. I think this tide, whatever it is what's been drawn to humanity in the world of Silkbulb, and what's now drawing humanity to itself. But why? Is it just a mechanical force like gravity or the real tides without any governing intelligence behind it? Maybe. But the research tapes suggest otherwise. The tide repeatedly makes what seem like attempts to communicate with the researchers. It broadcasts words, objects, faces, even imitations of their own memories. Whatever it is, it seems to be trying very hard to reach out and be heard by someone. So what does it want? Well, when the researchers find the recreated memories in the field, the word lonely is written on the data cards. The creatures that manifest in the research facility don't do anything but stand staring at the sensors observing them, as if waiting to be acknowledged. The first thing the mysterious caller asks Sam is,
Are you lonely?
the viral outbreak that's isolated everyone in their homes in Future Racer is called cephalospora. The haunting, dissonant musical fragments the tide plays in the lab are called the cephalonic melodies. The motif of an octopus with grasping tentacles appears again and again, first on the title page of the fictional medical book, then on Sam's wall, then on the parascaphism warning poster, and finally on Sam's head, having emerged from her brain. The octopus is part of a class of marine animals called cephalopods. All three terms derive from the Greek word cephalos, which, like I said before, means head. That word is also the namesake of a figure from Greek myth called Cephalus. Cephalus was a mortal hunter so talented and charismatic that Aurora, the goddess of the dawn, fell in love with him. Aurora was a jealous goddess, and her infatuation quickly became an obsession. She abducted Cephalus, imprisoning him for nearly a decade and forcing him to give her sons. Eventually, Cephalus escaped, but by this time his wife had taken another lover. Ultimately, traumatized and alone, he drowned himself in the ocean in grief. The force or entity or whatever it is seems to want at some level to connect with humans. But like Cephalus and Aurora, it either can't or doesn't understand how to make an organic connection. so instead it tries desperately to force one. The story of Silkbulb is, I think, a story about loneliness and failure to connect. Future Racer takes place in a kind of parody of the early-stage pandemic time period. Everyone is confined to their apartment by a viral outbreak, everyone is bored, everyone spends too much time watching TV and playing games. Everyone, from Pete to Henry to Leonard to Sam herself, tries to reach out for connection at various points, and none of them really find it in a satisfying way. Instead, they find the tide. The researchers theorize the tide reconstructs people's memories and spits them out as a way of sending some message. Really, it uses memories as bait. When these old, long-absent friends and loved ones start coming out of the woodwork and contacting the residents of Glendevon, it doesn't really matter that they don't sound or act quite right. It doesn't matter that they all suddenly seem obsessed with a weird racing game. These people are just happy to have a person they thought they lost back again. It's unclear if the tide always intended to do what it did. Its interactions with humans are more benign and experimental at first. It starts by giving the physicist, maybe the first human it ever made contact with, confusing but harmless visions. Later, it broadcasts odd melodies and images to the researchers studying it. When those don't receive the desired response, it escalates to copying the researchers' memories, which was maybe intended to be reassuring, but came off instead as creepy and wrong. Then it begins directly taking people, just like it took the physicist. By the time of Sam's story, the tide seems to have adopted an even more grotesque and inhuman approach to pursuing this one-sided relationship. It masquerades as bad imitations of lost loved ones and tricks its victims into exposing themselves to a deadly parasite. The marionette octopus itself is a predator that exploits memory. It infests the host by burrowing into the olfactory nerve and inner ear, the conduits of sound and smell, two senses strongly associated with memory. These are presumably how it's able to make the maintenance man think he hears his wife calling, or Leonard think that he hears his dead children knocking on his door. It's fair to say that Sam drowns at the end of the game. Maybe literally, depending on how you interpret the last part of Future Racer. But while Cephalus drowned himself because he was racked by grief, with Sam it's actually not as clear. For most of the game, Sam is aggressively unhappy, and not much seems to help that. The first conversation the player sees her have is an argument with her estranged ex-girlfriend, where she lashes out at her and complains about being miserable. Later, when Sam has to leave the infected Henry outside, her internal monologue calls her a coward and tells her, "You're alone because you're selfish." She won't throw out Pia's old clothes or the postcard or photo, even though they obviously cause her pain, because she can't let herself let go. The only time we see Sam smile is at the very end. Her face is rubbery and grotesque, and like the physicist, she now has something horrifying stuck in her head. But we get a glimpse of the idyllic beach memory that's being piped into her brain, and she smiles. Maybe she doesn't care if she loses herself, if it means they get to be together again. Likewise, the physicist states in his last entry that he's not going to fight the force he feels pulling him under. He wants it to take him.
And I won't fight it. I won't. I can't. It's warm and it's light. And I'm going home. I see that now. I see that today is special.
That's the same phrase that appears at the end of the final tape, which is called Friend. In that tape, the tide tells the listener to shed their grief and let the tides of time wash them away. Maybe that's good advice. You can find the Silkbulb Steam pages and YouTube channel in the description if you'd like to play the games yourself or follow his upcoming work. Thanks for watching.